Arg! Ahoy there, matey! Welcome aboard the world of boating.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
The radio show devoted exclusively to the boating lifestyle.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Brought to you by worldofboating.com, your internet portal for the boating enthusiast.
I was just looking into buying a boat of my own.
Call World of Boating toll-free now at 1-8888-28-BOAT. That's 1-888-828-BOAT.
And welcome. This is the World of Boating. Greg, your first mate. Barry the boater. Mike the mariner rounding out the crew as we attempt to navigate the latest boating news and information. And, man, we got a lot of stuff to cover. Mike the mariner's been off for a few weeks, and he's back with a big boating story, it sounds like. We're going to get to in just a bit. But before we do that, we got to talk about me. Just the other day, I saw one of the coolest boats on the water. And got an up-close personal tour of I think it was a Solus. If I remember correctly, it was like a 41-footer with four 450 outboards on the back of this monster. It was a
1,800 horsepower.
Sweet
If I had a boat
vehicle.
if I had a boat like that, I would have a little bell when you're running at full throttle to see how many gallons it's using. So for every gallon, it'll go ding, ding, ding,
Well,
ding.
I got a proposal for you guys for the World of Boating crew today.
Oh, yeah?
And it wasn't just to me. It was for our whole crew. He suggested we take World of Boating on the water because he has the latest and greatest Starlink uplink for boats installed on the vessel. And he said we could cruise over to the Bahamas or just out there in the Caribbean someplace and do the show live from the vessel because the Starlink service is so good. Yeah.
So you're doing live
World of Boating radio show from the water.
Well,
That was the proposal. What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I love it, but who's going to run the board?
Good question. I don't know. Logistically, I gotta.
Wait, do you have to?
Yeah. Well,
You can't
I think
nominate it?
I think I could probably set up a portable studio for us to link up with it. The main thing I didn't realize he had that system on the boat, and he told me, he says, "Oh yeah, the service is great. We why don't you come out and do the show?" And I'm like, that's always been the ultimate goal. Barry knows this from years ago that
Oh, yeah.
the plan was when we started the World of Boating is to put together a floating studio. I think this might be
in the Keys.
but anywhere, just to install a studio on a boat. But the way technology has rolled over the years, it's now very, very easy to do so. Not just with the mixing board stuff that you're referring to, Mike, but the main thing's the satellite internet connection. Now that we got Elon put out the Starlink system, and I just used it in the Galapagos. And I was blown away at the quality. And I'm like, hey, this actually, this would work.
I'll
we
look
could
into
do
that
this.
for Silhouette.
Yeah.
I'll look at, maybe we could put the studio on Silhouette.
Okay.
Right?
I'm in. And that's even more convenient. We'd have to get down to Fort Lauderdale and head out from there. But he offered to take us over to the Bahamas. And,
Sure.
Down there by Barry the boater. So so it sounds like I got some buy-in from the World of Boating crew. Fair enough? Yes?
Yeah,
You
we
guys?
can install that on Surprise. That's
All right.
fine.
And just so you know, Mike, if you look in, Mike, you ought to look into this because I guess from what I've been told on this Starlink system, some boaters are going two different ways. There is a marine version for Starlink that's a little bit more robust and even more dependable and that kind of thing. That's what this guy has. However, a lot of boaters are using their RV system. So they evidently came out with a version for RVs that some boaters are plopping down on their boat that, like the antenna's a little smaller, might be a little, less forgiving, but it still works.
Yeah, that's
And quite frankly, that's probably just fine for people doing the loop or things like that because you're always near land. You probably almost always have a cell signal. So you have multiple ways.
Well, it's satellite. It's the Starlink. They don't even need the cell, do they? I don't think.
Right. No, they don't. But what I'm saying is you have multiple ways to get connected to the world. Right?
Oh yeah, right. Correct.
And you're probably fine with the RV version of Starlink if you're just coastal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine if you're going off and you get into rough seas, it gets a little tricky when you're underway, and that's where you probably need a bigger, satellite. It's actually I saw it. It looked about I'd say
it's a flat antenna.
Yeah, a flat disc.
Yeah.
It's not circular.
Yeah.
It was rectangular, and
Nope.
it probably looked like, I don't know, maybe 1.5 feet by 2 feet or 3 feet tops, maybe. Just like a dish, like
I've
a
seen
serving
one
platter.
I've seen one apart. It's pretty interesting inside.
Yeah. All right. Well, Barry, you get one too. Why not?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Put that
Okay.
on surprise. We'll have that down there. We'll have this one up in Sanford.
It'll be a great sunshade for me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the service. I mean, it can vary cost wise month to month. I mean, that's where they get.
Yeah, it looks
maybe.
like about 150, about 150 a month, I believe, is what I heard.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then I think the other consideration is, for a boat, if you're going to be crossing over to the Bahamas a lot, back and forth, the one that is made for boats is probably a little bit more robust for seawater, salt water and that kind of corrosion.
Yeah, that would be my concern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm sure that is probably correct. But anyway, we got a lot of options. So maybe we'll make that happen. And I'll tell you guys will like this vessel. It had the whole thing. I've never seen a Navionics screen that big. This had to be. I bet it was at least a 24-incher minimum, maybe a 27.
Wow.
Installed in the dashboard of this monster, 41-foot, outboard,
the helm.
Center console. Just unbelievable. And I asked him, I said, does it have the Greg Pruth steering? He goes, oh, yeah, the joystick is right there, and you just punch in the GPS. But, man, it had all the bells and whistles. I mean, I was like, oh, man, how cool. He goes, and then go, hey, come on, let's go to the Bahamas and do the World of Boating radio show there, Greg. And I'm like, oh, okay. So hopefully it wasn't the rum talking, because we were partaking at a marina at the time. He wasn't operating his vessel. So as long as he wasn't hammered and he regrets making the offer, this could be in the cards for the World of Boating future. All right.
Okay.
There you go.
We're all in.
Yeah.
We're going.
All right.
I know Colleen will go.
All right. Good. The more the merrier.
All right.
All right. So I got that done. Let's get to Mike the Mariner's fiasco on the water, because you've been out cruising quite a bit lately. And, supposedly I hear things didn't go as smoothly this past week or something. Or when did it?
No.
What happened?
It was about a month ago. And
it was a month ago. Okay.
Yeah, about a month ago. My uncle, one of his neighbors, bought a 1987 or 8 Hatteras 58 motor yacht up in Maryland, and they relocated the boat to Destin, Florida.
All right.
And most of the voyage went very well. Came all the way down the coast. The boat ran great, all the way down to Florida, crossed the Okeechobee Waterway, and then up the west coast of Florida, and then hopped from Clearwater. They were going to cross diagonally up the Gulf of Mexico, and then reestablish the ICW, along the coast of Florida in the Panhandle.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran into some pretty major issues during that part of the trip, the last part of the trip. And
never fails.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened was the seas started to pick up because there was a storm front coming across the Gulf. The captain or the owner did a couple of really smart things. First, he's a very well-seasoned vessel operator, but he knew that his friends that were coming to help him crew the boat at various stages of the trip, including my uncle, who crewed the last part of the trip, this part of the trip that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. He also hired a captain to be another experienced person on board. Yeah. So very, a lot of good decisions, provisioned the boat correctly, lots of safety gear. But one thing that popped up during the trip across the Gulf, the generator failed, and then both engines failed about 5 minutes later.
What?
In the middle of the Gulf, and while the seas were building because of a storm front that was on its way.
Oh my gosh, this does not sound good. This sounds like the beginning of a 3-hour tour and the start of a major boating series. I don't know. We're going to find out the rest of the story next on the World of Boating. Stay close.
You're listening to the World of Boating Radio Network.
Be an explorer in the other 2/3 of your world. Be the buddy who takes the kids in the aquarium instead of just to it. Be adventurous. Be amazed. Be a diver.
Even Keatley wasn't ready for me, or anything that followed. Chased by a police department, led by his ex-girlfriend, and hunted by brain fork-wielding Fijian assassins, it's everything he can do to keep from getting locked up, killed, or worse. Kava Screw is available as an ebook for $2.99 at Amazon.com. Kava Screw. Put a brain fork in him. He's done.
Hosting a radio show about scuba diving and boating is one of the best gigs on the planet. It's actually part of my job to check out and report on cool new products I personally use to enhance my diving and boating adventures. However, I do believe in sharing the joy, and this is why we've added Nanook protective hard cases to our list of products you can now purchase on the merchandise page at scubaradio.com. Nanook cases are designed to protect the most sensitive equipment in the harshest environments. Underwater photographers, listen up. From their high-impact NK7 resin to their exclusive Power Claw latches, Nanook has raised the bar for those of you that demand the best protection for your gear. Plus, Nanook protective cases cost less than similar products currently on the market. The company has been around for over 15 years, but it's new to the U.S., so we've made a small number of Nanook cases available exclusively for you at a special introductory price on the merchandise page at scubaradio.com. Go there now and check out Nanook, the evolution of protection.
Successfully navigated the Sea of Commerce and now are clear to cruise with the World of Boating.
I do like the water.
The radio show devoted exclusively to the boating lifestyle.
The sun, the sea air, good friends.
Brought to you by worldofboating.com, your internet portal for the boating enthusiast.
Yoo-hoo, Mr. Pirate!
What will we do with a drunken sailor? What will we do with a drunken sailor? What will we do with a drunken sailor at night in the morning?
This is the World of Boating. Greg, your first mate. Barry the boater, Mike the mariner, rounding out the crew as we, catch up on the latest boating news and information. Actually, we got a pretty interesting story about Beer Can Island. I think these are everywhere, but we're going to get to that in just a bit. But right after we find out what the heck happened to Mike the mariner. Now, you lose your generator, you lose two engines. Now, you were on the boat as well, or no?
No.
Okay.
No, I was not on the boat. My uncle was on the boat.
Okay, so is your uncle. So did he call you in a panic like, Mike the mariner, help us, come save us. We have no power. The seas are building. I don't know.
No, they did the right thing. They actually called the Coast Guard first.
Oh, okay. That's probably
so recapping, the boat ran perfectly all the way from Maryland, all the way down the coast, all the way across the Okeechobee Waterway, and then up the west coast of Florida to Clearwater. Then they were making their crossing of the Gulf up towards the Panhandle, where they were intending to intersect the coast around Panama City, ultimately going to Destin, which is kind of close to Pensacola.
So they didn't hug the coast. Then they wanted to.
No, and most people don't.
Why?
You normally don't hug the coast. It's up through the Big Bend area because that's it adds a lot to your trip. So typically you look for a fair weather day to make that diagonal crossing from Clearwater to about Panama Beach.
Okay.
That's the shortest route. So you look for a good weather day, and technically they had a good weather day, but they didn't make the speed. They would have been safely to Panama Beach had everything gone fine. But the difference was the seas were a little lumpy, lumpier than they had experienced on the trip all the way down, because they were typically in the Intercoastal Waterway most of the way down the east coast of the U.S.
Right,
and across, of course, across the the Okeechobee Waterway.
Yeah.
And then going up to Clearwater, the Gulf of Mexico was nice and flat, no big deal. Well, during the crossing up to Panama Beach, the winds were higher. They were a little further north. There was a storm front over Texas that was approaching. So the winds were kicking up, the seas were kicking up. And again, about halfway across, the generator failed. And then about 10 minutes later, both engines failed.
Wow.
Now, the common factor to all three of those events is fuel. Right?
Yeah.
So the short story is what happened is there was sludge in the bottom of the tanks, the diesel tanks, that got mixed in with the diesel and clogged all the fuel filters to all three to the engines and the generator, which is also a diesel generator.
Right.
So that's what shut everything down. And they did get one of the engines back up and running, but then it failed again, like 10 minutes later. So
yeah.
They were just they just had no power, no generator, and the seas were building. So they called the Coast Guard. Coast Guard dispatched Towboat US. It took 4 hours for them to get to the boat, and by that time, they had set an anchor. They had about 350 feet of anchor line out.
Wow!
And without power, also the battery that powered the windlass was dead. So they couldn't pull up their anchor.
Literally.
Yeah. So it got pretty dicey. They ended up having to cut the anchor line.
Oh wow!
And then they went under tow, and it took them about 8 or 9 hours to ultimately get into Panama Beach, where they had some repairs made. It took a couple of days, and they were able to get the boat running again. But it was a pretty hairy trip. So the lesson is fuel quality, right? So one of the things they had to do in Destin is polish the diesel fuel, which is basically ultra filtering it. So they had to pull it out of the tanks, clean it, and put it back in the tanks and get the sludge out. So if you're moving a vessel that's diesel powered in particular, that has some age to it or has been sitting for a while, you might want to find a way to do a double check on the quality of the fuel that's in the tanks.
Yeah. What do you think, Barry? Well, you have that problem?
Gary, well, I haven't had that problem, but if you recall, you and I were down in the Keys one time on your friend's dive boat.
Yeah.
And his engine died because of bad fuel.
Mm-hmm.
But he carried extra filters with him.
Well, that's what I was going to go with.
Yeah.
I mean, did they realize that was the problem right out of the box when it started happening, Mike, or did it take them a while to figure it out that, hey, we got a clogged filter or there's sludge or what?
They did. The issue was, they had spares, but they immediately clogged right back up.
Yeah.
So they were low. They had low fuel to begin with then.
No.
How much?
It was just dirty fuel. As simple as that, right?
But they were running fine up to a certain point.
Okay, it goes back to what I said before.
It was getting rough.
Coming down the coast and crossing the Okeechobee Waterway and going up to Clearwater, the water was flat.
So it never churned it.
So when the seas got rough, the diesel started mixing.
Yeah.
And it pulled the sludge out of the bottom of the tank and mixed it in with the diesel.
Mm-hmm.
It went in through the pickup, went into the fuel filters,
right,
and shut the engines down.
Wow.
And that's it.
So is there a thing like at the fuel pump? Can you get a filter for your intake or something that would keep that from happening? Or I don't know.
Because the diesel you're putting in the boat is clean.
Yeah.
It's the diesel that's been sitting in the tank. Yeah, because diesel can actually you can actually have bacteria and
it'll deteriorate over time,
which is weird.
Right.
I mean, there's living organisms that can live in that stuff.
In diesel, right?
Yeah. Sea monkeys, all that's how they started, isn't it?
Is that how it started?
I don't think it was.
Well, so but you could put in like some additive or something. That's all you would do, or and then check your filters again and that kind of stuff. Or I don't know.
Right. If your vessel's going to be sitting for any length of time, you want to put the additives in. I don't know that would completely negate the possibility that you'll end up with sludge because diesel will absorb moisture, and that's where it all starts, right? Mm-hmm. So the thing is, you just have to be cognizant that that's how this happened.
Yeah.
When they hit the rough water, the diesel started sloshing in the tanks.
But that's what they did in Panama City. They literally sucked all the fuel out and made it bone dry, so they made sure they got all the funk out, and then
it's called polishing.
Polishing.
It's called it's called polishing the fuel.
Polishing the helmet. Polishing the the fuel container. Yeah,
that's it. Dig yourself out.
No, I'm not. There's no digging involved. Yeah. But yeah. Okay, just cleaning up your fuel. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So lesson learned. Nobody was hurt, but it was a little hairy for 12 hours or so at least. Huh?
Well, my uncle did sustain an injury on that trip. He actually ruptured his calf muscle because the seas were really rough, and he was trying to get to a certain part of the boat, and something happened, and he overstressed.
And the tiny ship was tossed, huh?
The tiny,
He didn't have Barry the boater on board to do all that manual labor for him. Well, actually, then he would have been worse off, right? Yeah. Okay, more coming up on the World of Boating. Beer Can Island, you got one? We're going to talk about it.
You're listening to the World of Boating Radio Network.
Traffic sucks, unless you're scuba diving with Mike Scott.
Mike glanced down at his dive computer. It showed less than 50 PSI left in his tank. Probably just a few more breaths.
Or riding shotgun in a thrilling car chase.
One bullet hit the Jeep's windshield, spiderwebbing the passenger side. Mike shifted into second gear and felt the Jeep leap forward. This just got serious.
Escape your commute with audiobooks from author Eric Douglas. Download to your phone. Go to booksbyeric.com or audible.com.
Do you have a message or product you need to share with the boating world? Well, look no further than the World of Boating radio show. Just like you, thousands of boating enthusiasts are hearing this message, and we could be talking about you and your product or service as early as next Saturday. Remember, a terrible thing happens when you don't advertise. Nothing. Go to worldofboating.com, send us an email, and let's get to work to make your marketing message matter.
Successfully navigated the Sea of Commerce and now are clear to cruise with the World of Boating.
I do like the water.
The radio show devoted exclusively to the boating lifestyle.
The sun, the sea air, good friends.
Brought to you by worldofboating.com, your internet portal for the boating enthusiast.
Welcome aboard. I will be your captain. You'll be my scallywags. I don't know what that means, but you will be them. And here's how we play.
Thank you for your attention, and welcome aboard.
Let's go.
This is the World of Boating. Greg, your first mate. Barry the boater. Mike the mariner rounding out the crew. All right, so hot off the the story of the week last week, which is that Boca Bash fiasco. With the kids dumping the beer cans off the boat all over Inlet and all over the news. We argued about it last week, and Patrick's not here this week. He's probably on a hunt to hunt him down and crucify him or something. I don't know.
No, he won't do that. No.
Yeah, but he's like he was demanding jail time. So
it was a black eye for this state.
Oh, no doubt.
Because we live off of tourism. If they see how some of our locals treat this state.
Well, they're everywhere. Just like there are beer can islands everywhere, I think.
Yeah. That kind of hurt when I heard this story.
Well, the Boca Bash is on the east coast of Florida. And that was a big spring break boating fiasco, and we talked about that last week. This week, there's a story about Beer Can Island off the coast of Tampa, or somewhere right off the coast of Tampa, a couple miles offshore, and I guess some people bought the island, had turned it into a cool place to go with a tiki bar and the whole thing. But for whatever reason, they were having trouble, and they shut it down and for a couple years, and it turned into a giant mess where people were just trespassing, having their own little private parties, leaving garbage everywhere. And, Beer Can Island was born, or that was the name given to it, I guess. But there are these islands all over the place, right?
Yes. When you mentioned it, I go, wait a minute.
I know
I've
one
gone
of
to
those.
Beer Can Island. A lot of times it's right next to the sandbar that I hang out at Haulover.
Right.
And they call it Beer Can Island because that's where all the teenagers would go.
Yeah.
to drink their beer.
Exactly. Well, anybody, obviously not a big fan of littering, and this has become a big mess in Tampa. Now, the thing is, what do you do about it? And the article goes on to talk about how they're trying to revitalize Beer Can Island off the coast of Tampa, and I thought this was an interesting take on it. And the people that own the island, like I said, they shut it down a couple of years ago, and there was a problem because, obviously they weren't doing well enough to keep it operating and was costing too much. So they decided they wanted to shut down and reorganize. And what they've come up with is a local buy-in by selling shares of the island to the local community, with the idea of like, okay, if we get like 1,000 people to put in $1,000 a piece to own a share of the island, we'll get buy-in from the local community, and it'll be something that everybody will want to protect, and we'll, support it to have security so people don't come over there and dump trash and, wreck the place or steal stuff. I mean, they have had generators stolen out of warehouses or buildings that they had put up and all kinds of stuff. They were having all kinds of problems. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's an interesting solution. Maybe that's the way to do it. What do you think, Barry? Good idea or bad?
Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. If it's, what you're doing is buying what's called a unit in this LLC that owns the island.
Yeah.
There were 1,500 to begin with. There's 1,315 left, and all you have to invest is $1,000.
Okay.
Now,
I'll do that.
If you invest 10,000, then you get 10 units of it. Now, I don't know what that means. Does it mean?
Well, that means 10 units of $1,000 a piece
of the island. Yeah. So
I even understand that. What part do you not understand?
Well, what exactly are you getting other than a partial ownership?
Well, you are. Hopefully, I would imagine that means now you have a little bit of voice in what happens with on the island. And like I said, they want the local community to buy in and give them ownership that would make them want to protect it, or keep it cleaned up and looking good, so they can go there and enjoy it like everyone else. Maybe,
or you could, if you have $1.5 million,
just buy the whole thing outright.
Buy the whole thing outright. I mean, World of Boating has a pretty good slush fund right now. So,
well, there's that, and then there's the Barry the Boater Fund, which is probably what we would defer
that's
to.
That's underwater at this point.
Well, since Greg cut all of our salaries,
I noticed. What do you mean T-shirt? Buy your own.
Well, yeah. I mean, I assume if you buy a share, that means that you're going to get special access to the island, and you can use it as your own little private, getaway too, or something like that. I mean, I don't know what all kind of
sort of like a vacation. One of those. What do they call those things? Where you buy a unit of
like a timeshare kind of thing.
A timeshare. So maybe you get to buy the island for. Let's see, if you have 1,500.
You're buying into an LLC. The asset happens to be an island, so you're buying into whatever the value is. So
the value
somewhere down the road, somewhere down the road they sell the island or whatever.
You got a piece of the action.
If the storm kind of sinks it,
the store sinks it. Oh, a storm.
A storm. Yeah, if a storm.
Well, that could happen with anything on the coast.
Yeah, you could have a.
But if you got a boat and you're over there on the west coast of Florida and the Tampa area. And, I mean, this might be a pretty attractive option where you buy in, and I would imagine they do have special preference with people that are owners of the island. Maybe they get, special docking privileges or access to the island, on a legal front or whatever, and they come over there and have a picnic and all that kind of stuff. But it'd give them money to hire security to keep the trash off the island and keep, people from stealing crap or whatever they've been having problems with in the past. It sounds like an okay idea to me. I don't know. I'm sure there's a downside, but what do you think, Mike? You got any thoughts one way or another?
No, it's a neat place. I know where it is. I've never been on it, but I've been by it on a boat. It's actually pretty close to MacDill Air Force Base. And it's just a really, I think it would be cool. I might,
go over there.
Look into buying a share.
Well, there you go. See, you heard it here first. So
take the Craig Cat over there and go hang out on the island.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an interesting solution. I mean, like I said, I'm sure there's a downside to it. People might go, "Oh gosh, this is terrible." The local residents, who knows what they feel about it. But I just thought it was a creative idea. And because, you have these problems with these islands like this, these party islands, these beer can islands all over the country. I mean, there's, like Barry said, there's one down in South Florida. I mean, there's several down in the Keys. I mean, you hear about them all over. Oh, yeah. I mean, unofficial beer can island. Come on.
I thought we had the first one.
Yeah, right. Everybody does.
Not right. We've been calling it Beer Can Island for the last 40 years.
Yeah. Well,
we should have a trademark on that.
Am I wrong there, Mike, or have you heard this too?
No, there's places like this all over the place. It might not be called Beer Can. There's Disappearing Island.
Yeah, right.
There's and there's probably 20 of those. That are underwater at high tide. But
well, they turn into
Water Island. Yeah,
they turn into party. Unofficial party central on the weekend sometimes,
Now that could be a takeoff point for anyone that wants to do the crossing that Mike talked about earlier.
Go to Beer Can Island?
Yeah, you stop there, make sure your boat's fit and ready to go, and then just go right out the outlet.
Well, it's only 2 miles offshore, though, Barry. So
no, it's inside the Tampa Bay, according to this.
Well, then you would do all that stuff, at the dock, wouldn't you? Why would you have to stop there?
It doesn't have any utilities or docks or anything.
There's nothing there.
It's an island with a beach.
But he could put that in there. He could make this into a nice little.
Oh, you want to raise these shares to about $5,000 a piece, don't you, Barry?
Well, make it into a nice island. Have a little bit of fuel or something like that, or at least a mechanic there.
Yeah, just keep it looking good. A nice little fun afternoon weekend spot for your vessel. Don't go nuts with it.
You can put a submarine nest there.
Barry's going overboard. He's going to price it out of the market.
This thing's about 1 acre. I mean, it's a tiny little spot.
Exactly.
But
we're trying to keep it in Barry the We're trying to keep it in Barry the Boater's budget, Barry. So what you're trying to price yourself off, off the island there. What are you doing?
That's okay. I'll borrow it from you.
All right. Good luck with that. All right, we got more coming up on the World of Boating. Stay close.
You're listening to the World of Boating Radio Network. Successfully navigated the Sea of Commerce and now are clear to cruise with the World of Boating.
I do like the water.
The radio show devoted exclusively to the boating lifestyle.
The sun, the sea air, good friends.
Brought to you by worldofboating.com, your internet portal for the boating enthusiast.
Oh, look at this. So much fun, you'll ship your pants.
You'll ship your pants, bro! We'll be singing and dancing. Singing and dancing. Singing and dancing. Singing and dancing. When that great, great ship comes in. Ship comes in.
This is the World of Boating. Gregor First Mate, Barry the Boater, Mike the Mariner, rounding out the crew as we attempt to navigate the latest boating news and information and just share a few of our boating adventures. Earlier, we heard Mike the Mariner's uncle had an incident there in the Gulf. What about you personally, Mike? Everything's been smooth cruising for you, or what lately?
Yeah. Everything's been pretty well fine. I'm doing some compelled, I'll call it compelled investment in Silhouette right now, which basically means minor repairs that I'm having to pay for.
Well, after that incident with your uncle, did you immediately go to your fuel tank and add some fuel additive to this baby, just to be yourself safe?
No, I generally don't, because I run the boat so much. I generally have pretty young fuel in the boat all the time, and but I did my windlass failed, so I just ordered the motor for the windlass yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
So I have to replace that. There's a couple of other minor things, but other than that, the boat just went through the annuals and got a clean bill of health. All my filters are clean. Everything's new, and we're taking a trip on Memorial Weekend. We're going to head up towards Jacksonville and just do a 4-day weekend.
Well, there you
go.
So that's the official weekend, of boat season kicking off, Memorial Day weekend. I mean, this weekend down there by Barry the Boater, you got the air show. going on. You're not taking your boat out for that one, but that's the best viewing opportunity for the show.
I've done it where I've gone out on Jeff's boat.
Yeah. Dive friend of ours.
Yeah, dive friend. He goes on this. He has these 2 big dive boats. He brings his grill out. He grill food, beer. You sit out. You take a raft. You tie a line to your ankle, and you just lay out in the water as the aircraft fly right over your head.
Right.
And you say to yourself, "I'm glad they don't have bombs attached."
They may.
By the time you hear them, they've already passed you.
Oh,
and
exactly.
You know you're in trouble.
Yeah, they do. They cruise pretty low over the water. That's why the best viewing opportunity is on a boat.
Yeah, we just did that. The Sanford Air Show was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
We took silhouette. That's how I found out my windlass didn't work. We went out and I still was able to anchor out because it's only 12 feet deep in that part of the river. So I manually lowered my anchor, but we had another 40-footer tied on our hip, and then we had a beautiful 1981 jet or Ski Nautique 2001 with us too, and a couple of other boats. So we basically had a fiberglass island out there.
Nice.
And had about 25 people.
Going.
And the weather's beautiful today.
How low did the planes come over you? Did they fly directly over you, or not necessarily?
So not super close, but certainly close enough for us to have a great time watching them. It was the Blue Angels.
Yeah.
There was an F-22 and an F-35 and an F-16. And basically, when they're over the air show where Sanford Airport is, when they clear their maneuvers, they clear out to the north and go over the St. Johns River. Lake Monroe. And that's where we were. We were all the way down on the east end of Lake Monroe, which is part of the St. Johns River. And they clear out and they reform right over us. So it's a great show.
Yeah, but they don't do one of those flyovers like right over your boat.
They went right. They did go right over us, but they were 500 feet.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, I mean, I want them to come right over. I've seen them where if they go over water where they actually can spray up the water because they're just a few feet off the.
Well, they're a little higher than that.
Well, they got to be. They're legally they're not. They're not supposed to fly over people or crowded areas. I would assume that includes boats. Well, unless they're trying to take them out. Yeah.
There is an artificial runway that runs parallel to the beach, and they have on the opposite side of that is where most of the boats will anchor in order to get a good view of it. Instead of Jeff doing that, what he would do is he would anchor on the north side of this artificial runway. So as Mike had mentioned, they would do the acrobatics, which we were seeing from a distance, but then they would break off and then they would regroup at the either north side or south side and then come across us again.
Yeah.
So that was the cool thing. It's just being underneath as they flew overhead.
Right.
And then did their acrobatics.
Yeah. It is actually impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because when you have like the opposing solo and the primary solo, then you have the formation, the main formation of the Blue Angels. When they were clearing out to the north after they did whatever maneuvers they did over the show at the airport itself, then the opposing solos were chasing down the formation and then reforming, and they were doing that right over our boat.
Yeah,
and that was really, really something to see when you see these two opposing solos approaching. Maybe they're doing 350 knots, and then the opposing solos are bearing down on them at 450 knots, and then they just put on the brakes and slip right in, and suddenly you've got the full diamond formation, and it's just really, really amazing to see how skilled they are doing that formation flying. It's
we covered this quite a bit on Just Plain Radio, a month ago because we had the big Sun and Fun show. And and that's where they start all these shows, and it's one of the biggest in the country and that kind of thing. But I'll tell you, there needs to be a video of boaters out on the water that aren't aware there's an air show going. Barry alluded to this earlier because these jets go so fast. You see them, and then you'll hear them about 15 seconds later after they've already flown by you. And if you're not expecting it, it will scare the bejesus out of you.
Yeah, they come by pretty quick. And I'm surprised you're not going to be down here tomorrow because I'm sure you can get a spot on a boat and watch this.
Well, here's your boat. I would come down. Hey, Barry, let's go.
I'm working on my truck tomorrow, actually.
Oh, well, just pull the boat out of the garage and set on the boat in your driveway.
No, a little too far away.
Yeah, well, you could do that.
Fortunately.
But yeah, that wouldn't that be a great video? People getting startled.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but most people know. I mean, they've got Coast Guard everywhere. They've got the area cordoned off.
Well, right, but even at the air show, you would catch people that weren't paying attention, didn't realize, I don't remember who was there this year. I don't think it might have been the Blue Angels. I was thinking, what's the other big one?
Thunderbirds.
Might have been, I don't remember
Thunderbirds.
which one it was, but one of those. But same thing, and if you're not paying attention, you don't realize they're practicing or getting ready or whatever, and they swoop through and then you just see someone and like, whoa, God! And they just, they got something in their hands or coffee, like, God help them,
Well, that's the thing is you don't hear them when they're coming up on you.
Yeah.
And then they just come by and you realize if they had missiles and had released them, by the time they came by, the missile was right there with you.
You've already been evaporated and you had no idea
Close
what the heck
and personal.
Yeah. And I think that's the goal when they design these things. They've done a pretty good job with them. But it's an impressive view to see this stuff up close. And there's no better view than from the deck of your vessel. So if you're in South Florida this weekend, it's going on, and they're popping around all over.
And it's beautiful out. It is absolutely gorgeous out today and tomorrow. It's going to be warm.
Yeah,
it's going to be hot out there, but the winds are light. It's a good day to go boating.
And the rest of the country is getting ready to open up. Memorial Day is that's the weekend where the boating opens up.
I will not go out that day.
Well, you may not, but the rest of the country will. We're open year round in Florida. I'm talking about all our northwest or northern friends that are coming out of the cool season.
Shipping the ice out of their boat.
Yeah, so
they're de-winterizing.
Yes.
They're going to polish their diesel.
Clean your fuel, exactly. Polish your fuel. And that's not a euphemism for, something Barry will do after he gets off the show. So,
hush up.
Hey, now. Hey. On that disturbing note, in the image we created, we're going to wrap it up. Till next time, remember, whether it is sail or motor,
life is better as a boater.
Safe boating, everyone.
Barnacle-bitten swab. World of Boating is brought to you by worldofboating.com, your internet portal for the boating enthusiast.
Any of this getting through to you, son?
World of Boating is a production of Overboard Entertainment Incorporated.
Computer standing by.
Remember, you can listen live or to archives of past shows worldwide over the internet at worldofboating.com.
Computers can do that?
So tell a friend and come aboard every week for the World of Boating.
This is so great. I can't wait. I'm getting goosebumps. Feel me.
The radio show devoted exclusively to the boating lifestyle.
TTFN, ta-ta for now.
The opinions you just heard on the World of Boating are those of the hosts, callers, and guests. They are not necessarily those of any station or network, its management, or advertisers.
What are you being such a weenie for?
While on the water, your safety and the safety of many others depends on you. So boat smart and operate your vessel only after receiving the proper training and instruction for your area.
There is a fine line between genius and madness.
Have any questions or comments? Feel free to do so via the web at worldofboating.com.